This happened 5 years ago. I was 35 and had just lost my job. I needed a break, so I rented a cabin deep in the woods. I thought it would help me escape, clear my head, and figure out what to do next. The cabin looked charming enough, surrounded by tall pine trees and facing a quiet lake. I planned to disconnect from the world, just me, a few books, and nature. I've never stopped thinking about it. The first night was peaceful. I set up my things and settled in. I listened to the sounds of the forest. It was quiet. But on the second night, around midnight, I heard a faint scratching noise beneath the floorboards. My heart raced. I tried to tell myself it was probably just animals. I thought it was nothing, just part of the cabin's old charm. But it kept scratching. I pulled the blanket up to my chin, hoping it would stop. The next day, everything seemed fine. I spent time by the lake, just taking in the view. I felt a little better. But night came again, and the scratching returned. It grew louder, accompanied by soft thumps. I lay in bed, wide awake, too scared to look. I felt cold and kept telling myself I was being silly. Maybe it was just the cabin settling, but deep down, I wasn't sure. The following day, I decided to explore the attic. I needed a distraction. I found some old photographs tucked away in a dusty box. The faces stared back at me, smiling. But there was something off about their eyes. I couldn't tell if they were happy or scared. I felt uneasy looking at them. I could almost hear whispers in my mind. Who were these people? What had happened to them? That night, as I lay in bed, the scratching grew frantic. My heart pounded. I wanted to run, but I was frozen. I thought about the photos. The people in them. Did they experience what I was feeling? I was scared, but I couldn't leave. I wanted to understand. The thumping started again, louder this time, as if something was trying to break free. Then, there was silence. I held my breath, waiting. Was it over? Maybe it was just my imagination. But then I heard whispering. Soft, unintelligible. It felt too close. I sat up, my heart racing. I strained to listen. Why are you here? I thought I heard someone say, but I turned to see nothing. I was alone. Or was I? The air felt heavy around me. I turned off my flashlight. Maybe darkness would help me shake it off. But the whispering didn't stop. I heard it again, clearer this time. Leave. I peered into the shadows, feeling the weight of unseen eyes. My fingers trembled. I wanted to get up and run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. The photographs flashed in my mind. I could see their eyes pleading. I thought about their smiles, their fear. Then, I heard a new sound. A soft, slow creaking from above. I blinked, frozen. The attic door wasn't closed. My breath hitched. I was not alone, and I suddenly understood that the forest wasn't the only thing holding secrets. I sat up straight, my heart pounding. The attic door creaked again, this time sounding more like a warning. I had to know what was up there. The whispers still echoed in my mind. Leave. Were they trying to protect me? Or was it a threat? Slowly, I swung my legs over the edge of the bed and set my feet on the cold floor. Each step toward the attic entrance felt heavy. I thought about the photographs. The faces seemed to belong to a different time, yet here I was, not so far removed from their fate. As I reached the door, I hesitated. The scratching noise from beneath the floorboards had stopped, but I felt a new kind of energy in the air, crackling as if something unseen was waiting, watching me. I pushed the attic door open and a wave of stale air hit me. One hesitant step after another, I climbed the wooden stairs leading up. The darkness swallowed me, but I flicked on my flashlight. The beam cut through the shadows. Dust motes danced in the light, swirling around like ghosts. I scanned the room, looking for anything out of place. To my right, I saw boxes piled haphazardly. Old furniture lay covered in white sheets, their shapes yielding secrets. But it was the corner that drew my attention. There was a small trunk, weathered and locked. My curiosity burned. I didn't want to touch it, but I couldn't resist. Just as I reached out to pull it toward me, I heard a loud bang from the other side of the cabin. I jumped back, heart racing. It sounded like something had fallen. I steadied my breath, taking a moment to convince myself it was nothing. But deep down, I knew the sounds I'd heard were real. Then, I heard it again, the faint scratching sound from below, rising once more. My instinct screamed at me to get out of there, but the trunk pulled me like a magnet. I quickly kicked the trunk. It didn't budge. I needed a key, something from this place. This was the moment when I should have left and never looked back. Instead, I felt drawn to it. I returned my flashlight to the trunk's lock, hoping to see a mechanism. There was a soft glimmer just above the latch. A reflection caught my eye. I realized there was something metal hidden in the crevice. I reached in with cautious fingers, pulling out what looked like an old key. It was cold and heavy, like it carried a burden all on its own. Cautiously, I inserted the key into the lock. It fit perfectly. I took a breath, turned it slowly, and felt the click. The trunk's lid creaked open. Inside, there was a collection of items, hidden secrets waiting for someone to uncover them. But that's when I saw it, a polished mirror buried under dusty clothes. My heart sank as I gazed into its depths, and I realized I wasn't looking at my reflection. Before I could react, a shadow loomed behind me. Something was in the attic with me. I froze, flashlight beam locking on the shadow. My breath caught in my throat. It hung there, still but palpable, a dark silhouette against the attic's wooden beams. I couldn't tell if it was a person or something else. My gut told me to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. The shadow shifted slightly. My heart raced. I fumbled for the trunk, hoping the mirror had got my attention for the wrong reasons, that there was nothing there. But there it was again, the sound from below, a soft scratching, like fingernails on wood. It echoed in the darkness of the attic. I took a step back, trying to keep my voice steady. "Who's there?" My voice cracked. I felt like a fool for even asking. It was obvious no one should be up here. But silence filled the space, as thick as the dust gathering on the old furniture. I glanced at the trunk. It had become irrelevant in that moment, the real mystery was what lurked behind me. I tried to focus on the details of the shadow, but the more I looked, the more it seemed to reshape, forming an outline as if it were teasing me. Freedom felt so close yet painfully out of reach. I kicked at the trunk in a desperate attempt to jostle my focus. "What do you want?" I yelled, hoping any response would dissolve the intangible fear wrapping around me. Just then, the flashlight flickered. My heart skipped a beat as the light dimmed and then brightened again, but only to reveal an even deeper darkness behind me. I whipped around, instinct screaming to run. The shape loomed larger, the edges more pronounced. And then it spoke, a low, distorted whisper. "You shouldn't have come back." The world around me collapsed into chaos. I stumbled backward, my foot catching on one of the old furniture legs. I hit the ground hard as the beam from my flashlight danced wildly across the attic. The mirror. The memory of the faces from the photographs flashed before me. Those trapped souls staring back, their silent screams echoing in my mind. With desperate hands, I scrambled to the trunk. I pushed aside the clothes and lifted the mirror with trembling fingers. Its surface seemed to ripple as I held it up toward the shadow. "Leave me alone!" I shouted, feeling foolish yet ready to fight. I had to banish whatever this was. That's when I caught something in the mirror's reflection, another figure, standing in the corner of the attic, close enough to reach me. Panic gripped me as I quickly turned, but there was nothing. Just the empty space against the wall. I felt a sense of urgency claw at me. Whatever was in the cabin was messing with my mind. I couldn't stay here. I had to escape. Scrambling to my feet, I shot for the attic door. The scratching intensified, now echoing all around me. As I yanked the door open and dove into the hallway, I glanced back just once. The shadow still stood there, silent, and I heard that awful whisper again. You will return. Every instinct told me to flee, but what if what I see mattered? The mirror. The sheer weight of its presence bore down on me as I sprinted for the stairs, feeling the weight of an unknown consequence looming behind me. While I escaped the attic, I still felt its eyes on my back. I realized then that I hadn't just found something up there, I had disrupted something that didn't want to be disturbed. I left the attic, but I had a feeling the real horror was just beginning. I burst through the door at the bottom of the stairs, adrenaline coursing through me. The wooden floorboards creaked as I rushed into the kitchen, the harsh light from the overhead bulb illuminating my path. I slammed the door behind me and pressed my back against it, trying to catch my breath. The cabin felt too quiet now, as if it were holding its breath along with me. I scanned the room, half expecting to see a shadow figure slip in through the cracks. The usual clutter, a mismatched table set, a tired old couch, and piles of books felt foreign, like it was all part of a setup in a movie about a haunted house. My fingers grazed the surface of the table, but I quickly pulled back. I wasn't sure if I could distinguish between reality and something else. I had to think. I reached for my phone, praying for a signal. No bars. I cursed under my breath, reminding myself how distant this place was from everything. I couldn't even consider walking down the dirt road for help. My eyes flicked to the window, and I caught a glimpse of the forest outside. The trees loomed darkly, swaying gently as if whispering secrets to one another. I stepped towards the window, peering outside. Nothing in the stillness caught my eye, but that didn't ease the gnawing dread inside me. Something was out there. Whatever that shadow was, it inhabited my mind like a bad dream I couldn't shake awake from. A sudden noise came from behind me, a whispering, just barely audible but weighted with malice. My heart thudded, and I spun around, convinced I'd see the figure from the attic again. Instead, there was nothing but shadows. I took a step back, my eyes darting around the room. Had I really heard something? Then I noticed it. An envelope on the kitchen counter that hadn't been there before. It stirred something in my chest. Carefully, I approached it, half expecting it to burst into flames the moment I touched it. I ripped it open, trembling. Inside was a single photograph. My stomach dropped as I recognized the faces instantly, the ones I had seen trapped in the mirror. All of them were smiling in that old, dated style. Yet, their eyes seemed to hold a warning. I turned the photo over, there was a message hastily scribbled on the back. Find the truth or be found by it. A chill shot down my spine. I tossed the photo back on the counter, overwhelmed. How could I uncover a truth about something that felt so intangible? Outside, the wind picked up, the trees rustling ominously. That's when I heard it again. The scratching noise. This time, it came from above, just like when I was in the attic. I darted towards the staircase. I didn't just want to get out, I had to know what it was. Facing that shadow head-on began to feel like the only path forward. Taking a deep breath, I headed upstairs again. Each step creaked beneath my weight, echoing my determination and fear. When I reached the top, the door to the attic stood ajar, an unsettling invitation. I hesitated, but the urgency clawed at me. I pushed the door wide open and stepped inside, ready to confront whatever lay beyond. It was then that I saw the mirror again, only this time, it was covered in a thick layer of dust, untouched since I'd made my escape. But it shimmered slightly, and I felt drawn to it once more, despite the wave of dread washing over me. I stepped closer, and that's when the whispers erupted. They filled the attic with a cacophony of voices, not just one, but many overlapping. Find us, I stumbled back, the shadow flickering back to life at the corner of my vision. I turned, only to be met by a chilling silence. No shadow. No whispers. But I knew, I had awakened something that would not let me go so easily. What did they want from me? What truth was there to uncover? I had to find out, or risk becoming one of those trapped souls. The whispers lingered in the air, but I fought to steady my breathing. The attic felt alive, an oppressive presence weighing on me. I cautiously approached the mirror again, my heart racing. What was it about this mirror? Why did it call to me? As I leaned closer, my reflection wavered. For a fleeting moment, it wasn't just me staring back. I could see the faces from the photograph, their smiles twisted into looks of despair. I jerked back, the room spinning around me. What do you want? I shouted, half in anger and half in fear. Silence answered me, thick and heavy. I glanced up at the dusty rafters, expecting some sign, some flicker of movement. But nothing happened. The unsettling quiet returned, leaving me feeling utterly exposed. Maybe the photograph held more answers. I hurried downstairs, grabbing it from the kitchen counter where I'd tossed it. I examined it under the dim light. The back bore no additional clues, the scribbled warning was all there was. But I realized that the faces were familiar for another reason. I had seen them before, not just in dreams. They belonged to people I knew, or had known. Fragments of memories began to resurface, muddled but tantalizing. Suddenly, a loud crash broke my concentration. My heart raced again. I dropped the photograph, certain it had come from the attic. Someone or something was up there with me. I took a step back, my instincts screaming to run. But this was my only chance to confront whatever had been chasing me. I climbed the stairs carefully, my feet moving almost on their own. Each creak sounded like a warning, but I pressed on. When I reached the attic door, I paused to listen. The sound of movement was unmistakable now, scraping, shifting, hesitant, as if whatever was up there was just as afraid of me. I pushed the door open slowly, the hinges groaning in protest. The light from the hall illuminated the dusty space, revealing nothing, but I could still feel it. The tension was thick, like a storm about to break. Show yourself. I yelled, my voice steadier than I felt. No answer, just eerie silence. I stepped into the room, scanning every corner. Just as I was about to turn back, I caught sight of a shadow in the corner flitting just out of focus, like a moth under a lamp. The shadow twisted, revealing a figure that seemed to flicker between existence and nothingness. Help us, it whispered. I froze, the air around me growing colder. Even the dust motes hanging in the light seemed to still, as if waiting for what would happen next. Then I realized. This shadow wasn't just a threat, it was a plea for help. The images from the mirror flashed in my mind, their smiles fading into cries for release. If this was real, if the spirits were trapped, maybe I could help them. But how? I took a step forward, uncertainty clawing at me. What do you need? I stammered. But as soon as the words left my mouth, the figure recoiled, fading further into the shadows. Find the truth, it echoed before disappearing altogether. I stood alone, heart racing, grappling with what I'd seen. Had I imagined it? Or had I really let a part of their struggle into my world? I was running out of time. I needed to uncover whatever truth bound these souls to the cabin before it consumed me too. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of the mirror one last time. This time, instead of my reflection, I saw flashes of the past, the cabin, the laughter, the darkness that followed. And then, everything went dark. I jolted awake on the cold floor of the attic, my heart still racing. The darkness enveloped me, thick and suffocating. I could barely remember what had just happened before I blacked out. I scrambled to my feet, wincing as my knee hit a beam. I needed to get out of this attic. As I stumbled toward the door, an uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. The whispers were back, echoing softly against the walls. Find the truth, I remembered, and it fueled my determination. I threw the door open and dashed down the stairs, the wooden steps creaking under my weight. I had to start piecing together the fragments of what I knew. Back in the kitchen, I grabbed my phone to look up any information about the cabin or the families in the photograph. The Wi-Fi was spotty, but I managed to get a signal. I typed in local legends of abandoned cabin but found nothing that caught my eye. Just then, I noticed a set of keys on the counter that I hadn't seen before. They were heavy in my hand, each one glinting slightly in the low light. Out of instinct, I pocketed the keys. Who knew what door they would unlock? Maybe they were part of the answer I was searching for. I felt a pull toward the basement. Perhaps there was something hidden there, something that would explain the shadows and the cries. Descending into the basement felt like stepping into a different world. The musty air greeted me like an old friend, and the darkness was punctuated by shafts of light peeking through the cracks in the walls. I felt a shiver race down my spine, but I pressed on. With each cautious step, my phone's flashlight illuminated dusty shelves full of forgotten items, broken furniture, old boxes, and forgotten keepsakes. Nothing seemed out of place until I reached the far wall, where something caught my eye. A large, ornate door stood slightly ajar, hidden behind a stack of old crates. It was as if the door was calling me. I pulled at the handle, and to my surprise, it opened easily. Inside, I was met with a small room stacked with more boxes, but the air felt charged, almost electric. I could sense something in energy that made me hesitate. That's when I saw a faded journal lying open on a small table, its pages frayed. I picked it up and began to read. The entries were dated from 5 years ago, chronicling events that unfolded in this very cabin. As I flipped through the pages, the ink seemed to bleed sadness, tales of joy turned to despair, of families torn apart by some unknown disaster. But it was the last entry that stopped my heart. They can't escape. We need to find the mirror. My hands shook as I closed the journal. This was it. This was the truth that had been eluding me. Then, without warning, the lights flickered and the door slammed shut behind me, plunging me into darkness. Panic surged through me. I was trapped. I blasted my phone's flashlight around the room, trying to find an escape. That's when I heard it again, the whispers, closer now, urging me to find the truth. I pressed my ear against the door, desperate to listen. Whatever was out there felt hungry, waiting for me to make the next move. I could hear the whispers clearer now, wrapping around me like a cold fog. I took a step back, heart pounding, feeling the weight of the darkness pressing in. I needed to think. There was something about the journal entry that wouldn't let go. We need to find the mirror. What did it mean? I had no clue where to even begin looking for a mirror in this cramped space. A sudden noise startled me. It echoed from the door, a soft scratching sound, followed by a fleeting whisper that felt like it grazed my ear. Help us! Panic twisted in my gut as I shone my flashlight directly at the door. My breath caught. Shadows swirled just outside, phantoms moving in and out of the light. Someone or something was out there. I had to act. My instincts kicked in, telling me to stay quiet, to hide. I rushed toward the stacks of boxes, quickly crouching behind one. The darkness felt alive, and I strained to hear what was happening on the other side of the door. The whispers turned into a chorus of faint cries and desperate pleas. I shuddered, completely overwhelmed. Who were they? What did they want? Just then, I spotted a glint near the base of the ornate door. It was one of the keys from earlier. I scrambled back to the door, the box shifting slightly as I moved. As soon as I reached the handle, another wave of shadows passed through the light, forcing me to freeze. The whispers grew louder, almost angry. Find us. They pleaded. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on my chest, but I couldn't back down. I picked up the key and fitted it into the lock, my hands trembling. It felt foreboding, like I was unlocking a gate to a nightmare. The mechanism turned smoothly, and I inched the door open. A chill filled the room, and the air shifted, taking on a damp, eerie quality. My flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing an even smaller space beyond. A mirror hung crooked on the wall in the dim light, dusty and cracked. Every instinct screamed in warning, but the draw was too strong. I stepped inside, cautiously approaching it. As I raised the beam towards the mirror, the glass shimmered and shifted, warping the reflection of the room. What I saw made my stomach drop. The mirror showed not only my terrified face but also figures behind me, shadows moving, watching. They weren't just reflections, they were the souls of the families from the journal. Their mouths moved, but I couldn't hear what they were saying. My heart raced as I turned quickly, but the room was empty. I quickly faced the mirror again, desperation rising. I needed to understand what it meant. Why were they trapped? My eyes met the reflections in the glass once more, and then I noticed a detail that struck me like a bolt of lightning. One shadow stood a little taller than the rest. It was far more defined, and its eyes glowed a chilling red. Just then, the lights flickered violently. The mirror cracked with a loud shatter, sending glass shards flying. I stumbled back, bracing myself. There was no time left. I had to figure out what this meant and how to help them before whatever lurked in the basement decided it was finished with me too. The sharp sound of breaking glass echoed in my ears as I stumbled backward, my flashlight flickering. Panic skittered through me. I quickly turned to look for a way out, but the door I'd just come through felt impossibly far. The whispers were intensifying, a frantic swirl of voices urging me to stay or to flee. My gut said to run. I pivoted towards the mirror's remnants, shards glistening like tiny daggers on the floor. Some, however, pulled my gaze like a magnet, the distorted reflections shifting and warping in unsettling patterns. I saw fleeting glimpses of the figures again, their mouths still moving, desperate and pleading. "Find me," they echoed. The words felt like a siren call, but I didn't understand what they wanted. As I glanced around the cramped space, I noticed an old trunk tucked into a corner, half hidden beneath piles of dusty blankets. It was worth a look, I thought, despite every instinct warning me to get out now. I approached it cautiously, kneeling in front of the trunk. My hands shook as I lifted the rusty latch and pulled it open. Inside, I discovered a collection of old family photographs, weathered and yellowing. They showed smiling faces, gatherings of people who once seemed so full of life. But right there, in every single picture, a shadow loomed in the background. The same tall figure with glowing red eyes, always watching, always waiting. A chill ran down my spine. What was this connection? My mind raced. Was this shadow somehow responsible for their tormented souls? I couldn't tell, but I felt a weight of urgency now, as if these images were clues to unraveling their fate. I rifled through the trunk, searching for anything that would help me understand. And then I found it. Tucked beneath a pile of photographs was a small, ornate box. It felt heavier than it looked, and I hesitated for just a moment before lifting it out. My heart pounded louder as I opened the lid. Inside lay an intricately carved mirror, much smaller than the one that had shattered. It sparkled and used, the surface unmarred, untouched by time. I couldn't believe my eyes. Could this be the mirror from the journal? The one that could help me free them? The whispers surged again with urgency, swirling in my mind. But before I could dwell on it, the atmosphere shifted. A rush of cold air swept through the room, and the lights flickered again. Just as the shadows began to close in, I heard a voice. "Help us finish it," it pleaded. That was it, the final signal. But just then, the door slammed shut, sealing me inside. Darkness enveloped me, smothering my ability to think. The air felt thick with despair, and I could hear the urgent cries escalating around me, echoing off the walls. I was trapped, the shadows creeping closer, and I had only moments to make a choice. With the small mirror cradled in my hands, I shouted, "What do you want from me?" The room fell silent, an eerie stillness settling over me, hanging heavy. But then, from behind me, a low growl vibrated through the air. I turned, my heart racing. This was different from the whispers. Something new, something dangerous was closing in. I fumbled to hold the mirror in front of me, hoping it would somehow protect me. The glowing red eyes appeared again, clearer now, filled with an unearthly rage. This was what I had awakened, and it was hungry. I had to act fast. I could feel my breaths quickening, each one pulling in deep drafts of fear. The growl was low but distinct, reverberating in my chest like a drum. My eyes darted around the room, now a claustrophobic cage with nowhere to run. I was painfully aware of the remnants of the shattered mirror scattered like sharp teeth across the floor. The red eyes drew closer. I could see the outline of its form now, shifting in and out of existence, a breadth of shadow pressed against the wall. No. Stay back. I shouted, raising the mirror higher, hoping that its surface might ward off whatever this thing was. I thought of the figures in the trunk, their pleading voices urging me to act. What did they know that I didn't? With trembling hands, I turned the mirror towards my own reflection. Surrounded by darkness, my face looked hollow, and the air felt like it thickened around me. But the moment the light from my flashlight hit the glass, something sparked. The reflection shimmered, and for a fleeting second, that horrifying growl transformed into a flicker of desperation. I had to find a link between the past and the present. Suddenly, an ear-piercing scream echoed around me. Help us! It was a chorus of voices rising up, drowning out the growl. The hairs on my arms stood on end as I looked back at the mirror. In its reflective depths, the shadow figure was distorting, mimicking the faces I'd seen in the photographs. Every face was twisted in anguish, every mouth open in terror. Finish it! They screamed again in unison. I stumbled back, nearly losing my balance on the glass shards. What does that even mean? I shouted, fighting against the panic rising in my throat. As if responding to my chaos, the air crackled again with cold energy. The mirror pulsed in my grip, almost alive, radiating warmth that contrasted sharply against the chill creeping up my spine. Just then, a sense of clarity brushed against my mind. The words their cries meant something. You want me to confront it, don't you? I whispered, though my heart screamed otherwise. I thought of the trunk. Those pictures meant something. They were connected to that shadow. And now that shadow was connected to me. With renewed determination, I steadied myself and pointed the mirror directly at the figure creeping ever closer. I will not let you take them. I yelled. The shadow let out a howl so profound, it felt like a physical force that struck me in the chest. But instead of flinching, I held my ground. The whispering voices surged louder, drowning out its growls. They seemed to crowd into the mirror, swirling around the edges like smoke. My vision swam as I tried to focus on the reflections blending together, and then the dim light revealed a broken corner of the room, partially hidden under a faded carpet. It was an old, now nearly invisible door, barely ajar. My heart leaped at the possibility. Escape? Or maybe a way to confront the truth. I had to choose. The growl intensified, frustration crackling in the air. The shadows clawed at my heels. I took a shaky breath. Okay, I said firmly, let us finish it. I dashed for the doorway, gripping the mirror tightly as the growl enveloped me, promising reprisal. I was out of time. I bolted through the hidden door, adrenaline surging as I plunged into the dark room behind it. The air was musty and thick with fear, but I barely registered the damp smell as I shut the door tight behind me. A sudden silence enveloped me, the kind that hints at something terrible just beyond the threshold. I could feel it lurking, watching me with those maddening red eyes. To my left, a single flickering light bulb hung suspended from the ceiling, casting weak illumination through the cramped space. Boxes stacked haphazardly around me hinted at the extent of forgotten secrets hidden within these walls. The whispers had faded, but my heart raced, echoing the memory of their pleas. I had to find the truth, but what did that truly mean? I glanced around the room. Should I search the boxes? There was one small opening leading deeper into the unknown that called to me, begging for exploration. Taking a deep breath, I flicked the switch on my flashlight and moved toward it. My feet lightened with resolve, but the moment I stepped closer, I felt cold tendrils of dread wrap around my ankles, urging me to turn back. Ignoring the sensation, I began rummaging through the boxes. Most were filled with mundane household items, old clothes, rusted tools, and boxes of broken toys. Yet, each one felt suffocated with the weight of the past. As I delved deeper, I found a worn leather journal tucked inside a dust-covered box. My heartbeat quickened, perhaps this was the key to unraveling the truth. I sat on the floor and opened it. The pages were filled with meticulous handwriting, detailing the lives of the families who once occupied this cabin. They spoke of dreams, happiness, and eventually, dark shadows creeping into their lives. It was heartbreakingly ordinary until the moon phase references caught my attention, along with a few entries highlighted in frantic loops. One entry stood out, dated a mere week before their disappearance. The mirror is losing its power. We must act at the next full moon or be found forever. I shivered. Was this the fate that awaited me if I couldn't piece together their lives? The haunting whispers returned, but instead of one voice, a myriad echoed confusion and urgency wrapped around the walls. Help us, they pleaded. You must know before it's too late. I could hear the growl swelling again, but it was muffled, as if struggling against an invisible barrier. The urgency settled in my bones as I reread parts of the journal. My breaths came in short gasps as I stumbled upon one final entry. The mirror holds them captive, it concluded. Without it, we cannot break free. But if the moon's light illuminates both the mirror and our shadows, true freedom lies within. A wave of understanding crashed over me as I remembered the small, ornate mirror in my hands. It was not simply a conduit, it was the key. I had to reverse whatever had taken hold of these souls, shine a light on the truth, and help them escape by facing their darkest fear. With newfound determination, I fled the confines of the dusty room, rushing back to the larger space where the hidden door had sealed me in. As I reached the door, I braced myself, knowing what lay ahead. My breath quickened as I opened the door, revealing the attic where it all started. The howling shadows were waiting for me, their forms twisting and shifting, a cacophony of grief and anger. They pulsed in the flickering light, snapping like gnarled branches. The oppressive atmosphere was choking, but I couldn't let fear take over. I wielded the small mirror in front of me like a shield, remembering what the journal had said. I could not let darkness snuff out the glow of truth. Show me what was, and what must be. I shouted, holding the mirror toward the swirling shadows. The mirror began to vibrate, the glass shimmering like water illuminated by sunlight. I concentrated, and a beam of warmth erupted from its surface. The shadows recoiled, skimming the edges of the light like moths drawn towards a flame. Help us, echoed through the attic again, but this time, it felt grounded in desperation. I clutched the small mirror tighter, matching the rhythm of my heartbeat to their cries. Focusing harder, I poured every ounce of my being into freeing them, fighting against the red-eyed shadow that loomed hungrily behind me. Suddenly, the mirror's light erupted, spilling across the room as it reflected the dark energy back upon itself. I saw glimmers of the trapped souls, some were ethereal, their faces twisted by grief, while others flickered in the background as if they were reliving the moments of their last breath. Light pooled around me, illuminating old memories captured within the dark corners of the attic. The shadows fluttered, swelling and breaking apart, as if the very essence of their being yearned for escape. I pushed forward, reflecting the warmth of those memories against the encroaching darkness. And then, in an explosive flash, a door erupted in front of me, glowing with pure light through which the trapped souls could pass. Screams and cries morphed into expressions of gratitude and salvation. Thank you. You've set us free. They cried, drifting toward the light. I staggered back, panting, as the dark shadow roared in fury, the sound a tempest as fragments of despair shattered against the radiant doorway. But I was reminded of Claire's journal. This wasn't just their battle, it was mine too, and I had the key to break free. Fueled by an instinctual sense of survival, I turned to the shadow, shouting defiantly, "You don't control me. This ends today." The light from the mirror shone brighter, rejecting the fear the shadow had instilled. The enraged howl pierced my ears, the red eyes turning dark, as the shadow began to disintegrate. The voices of the trapped souls transformed into a symphony of liberation. They soared into the light, filling the cabin with a blinding glow of relief. But just before I could follow them, a chilling feeling swept through the air, whispering in my ear, echoing Claire's words, "Be wary, for the shadows linger." As the last of the spirits ascended, I glanced around the once ominous attic, shadows still snaking through the corners. Though the torment had ended for those trapped, I felt the lingering presence of unanswered questions. What was the purpose of this place, and why had it called to me? Before I could explore further, I felt time slipping through my fingers. As I stepped into the shimmering light, I realized I wouldn't find the answers today. Not all truths can be uncovered at once. The door of the attic faded behind me, closing away the darkness as I embraced the unknown beyond. I stepped into the light, ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that some shadows never fully dissipate, but they flowed differently now, carrying whispers of hope as they melded with the depth of my own reality. And though my path remained shrouded in uncertainty, I carried the weight and the light of those I had freed. While the cabin still stood, a sentinel cloaked in myth, its secrets would live on, leaving me wondering about the balance between light and dark, forever etched in my mind.